Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Breaking the Patterns of Depression by Michael D. Yapko, Ph.D. Narrated by Stephen R. Thorne. A note about gender usage. The case examples throughout the book tell stories about men and women who have battled depression. In the case presentations, the mixed use of he or she is easy, deliberate, and purposeful. However, when I speak in general terms, or in terms of principles, I use only masculine pronouns. Why? It is simply too clumsy and distracting to try to work both the masculine and the feminine into each idea. So to make the book easier, I opted for the less than perfect choice of the traditional masculine. I hope you will understand that it's a choice made not of ignorance or preference, but of necessity. Forward. George, a 67-year-old married man, recently suffered a medical crisis. Since then, he hasn't had any appetite. He feels no energy or enthusiasm for life, and his wife reports he seems withdrawn and unresponsive. When questioned, George says he feels he's just an old man and will probably never enjoy anything again. Depression is a disorder that can strike anyone at any age. Young children and grandparents, men and women, teens in the midst of school crises, or middle-aged executives with a long history of success and achievement. Depression strikes across all barriers, making its victims miserable and robbing them of joy and satisfaction. Depression's strength lies in its ability to make you feel that nothing you do will ever bring back a sense of peace or satisfaction with life. But here is the great secret about depression. It's a sheep in wolf's clothing. It can be treated effectively, and the treatment's effects can make a difference that will last a lifetime. In the case of George, he saw improvement after just 6 sessions with a therapist. Now he and his wife go for walks, he enjoys gardening and working around the house, and he takes pleasure in visiting his grandchildren. He feels that he has a new lease on life. Contrary to popular belief, most treatment for depression need not last a long time. Many patients recover in less than 12 sessions. Many others do well in under 20 sessions. We are not talking about spending your life on a couch exploring your childhood. Today, much treatment for depression is action-oriented, focused on the here and now, and looking toward the future. The book you are holding has this as its clear purpose. It will help you understand depression, help you begin to cope with its effects, and show you how it can be defeated. While it is true depression causes untold pain and suffering, there is hope. Yes, depression is a cruel, unforgiving, and relentless foe. But depression has its weak points, and this book effectively prepares you to attack those points. Dr. Michael Yapko has spent his professional life helping patients confront and battle depression. He is a powerful and kind ally, and his experience and compassion have made the difference between victory and defeat for his patients. He is a talented teacher who has for years taught useful and sensible skills to other mental health workers. He is sought out and studied with the greatest mental health professionals of the 20th century. He has written unselfishly and helpfully about what he has learned, and he is a man of great personal integrity, whose personal life reflects his commitment to values and priorities. Dr. Yapko has brought this book to all of us who battle the enemy of joy and peace, depression. In this wonderful guide, he will teach you, as he has taught me, how to understand depression and how to defeat it. He will teach you how to look at yourself, the world, and the future in a new way. He will teach you that you can have a peaceful and satisfying life, and he will teach you how to do that. I heartily recommend this book because it is based on the best scientific and clinical information, because it comes from a deep understanding of the subject matter, and because it is full of compassion and understanding. Most of all, I recommend this book because when Michael says you can recover from depression, he really means it. Do the work. It will help. Lynn D. Johnson, Ph.D., Director, Brief Therapy Center, Salt Lake City, Utah. Introduction. Doubts, regrets, and despair. The alarm went off, and Lauren tried to find the snooze button. After several clumsy attempts to hit it, she was too frustrated to drift back to sleep. Already agitated, she found her first thoughts of the day unpleasant ones, waking up feeling tired, dreading the morning routine of getting the kids up and ready for school, wondering where she'd get the strength to get out of bed. Lauren pushed herself to get the wheels turning to face yet another day in a life where it was becoming increasingly difficult to find anything positive. After being married for 11 years, Lauren and Zach divorced 2 years ago. The boys spent most of their time with Lauren, an arrangement the couple arrived at quite agreeably. In fact, the whole divorce went pretty smoothly. Neither Lauren nor Zach had been particularly happy with the marriage. It was comfortable, but nothing more. No passion, no shared vision, no true intimacy. The mutual decision to divorce seemed a logical way to be free to find personal happiness, or so both of them thought at the time. Now, though, Lauren often found herself wondering whether divorcing Zach was the right thing to do. Her frequent doubts and regrets felt lousy. Lauren, only 33, had envisioned a wonderful transformation that would take place after the divorce. She pictured plenty of quality time alone with the boys. She fantasized about romantic and fascinating men she would date and with whom she would rediscover passion. She looked forward to nights out with girlfriends, seeing movies, or just going shopping at her leisure. And she savored the notion of having more time to read, think, and just be. But none of these things happened. Lauren's time with the boys was curtailed by their hardly ever being home. They had their own friends and interests, and even when they were home, it was tough to pull them away from their computer and video games. Dating had gone badly, too. Her work demanded so much of her time and energy, and what few guys she did date in the last 2 years seemed even less interesting than Zach. She had never thought before of the boys as a liability, but she was beginning to think that they definitely hindered her chances of finding the love of her life. She often entertained visions of growing old alone and lonely, and each time she did so, her despair grew. Her girlfriends were great, as always, but they were too preoccupied with their lives to have much time for her. Lauren understood perfectly the toll of building a career, being a mother, running a household, maintaining some semblance of a social life, staying physically fit, and all the rest she had to do. She could accept that her friends didn't have any more time for her than she had for them. Still, it left her feeling pretty lonely and isolated. Time to just be? Right. When? Lauren was overwhelmed, tired, hopeless that her life would ever improve appreciably. In a word, she felt stuck. At times like this, which were becoming a regular feature of her daily life, Lauren's mind threw up endless suggestions. What's wrong with me? Why is my life always such a struggle? Why don't other single mothers seem so despairing? Was I wrong to divorce Zach? Should I push him to have the boys more often, or is that an admission of failure? Will I ever find love, or will I always be alone and lonely? Am I some kind of emotional cripple who can't cope with life? What's wrong with me? Why am I so tired all the time? Why am I so negative? Have I always been this way? Is my negativity why no one wants to be around me, not even my sons? Why does my life feel so out of control? Every question, every thought drove Lauren's despair deeper. It felt physical, an extra weight dragging her down. It was emotional, a turbulent whirlpool of different feelings, all hurtful. It also felt spiritual, like a journey through a space and time that begged to be understood and worshipped at the place where conscious and unconscious awareness meet. None of it made any sense to Lauren, though. One time, when she was picking the boys up from a visit with their father, she found herself opening up to Zach about her feelings. Fearing he'd not really listen or understand, Lauren was surprised when Zach opened up and shared his feelings as well. He confessed that he too was not finding happiness in being single. He wanted to see the boys more, and wondered whether he was a fit father. He expressed doubts about himself, feeling he had failed as a husband and perhaps was failing now as a father. He said he felt bad most of the time, and life seemed awfully harsh lately. Lauren, who had never heard him talk this way, was mildly comforted by Zach's empathy and sensitive self-disclosure. Each made a point of reminding the other, and themselves, that despite their self-doubts and loneliness, trying to resuscitate a dead marriage would be a misguided effort. But it felt good to talk about their feelings and reaffirmed that they still had some positive regard for each other. Months ago, Lauren had mentioned to her doctor, during a routine physical, that she'd been feeling out of sorts lately. Her doctor didn't probe much and was perhaps a little too quick to let the subject drop. Lauren appeared to be physically healthy. Lauren thought maybe she was making too much of her feelings, so she too let the matter drop. Now she thought that maybe she should have pursued it. Then the thought occurred to her that maybe she should take it up now, with someone who could really understand her feelings and know what to do about them. That same day, Lauren began asking trusted friends for the name of a psychologist she could consult. She was given my name, and she took the sensible step of calling me. After our brief telephone discussion about her concerns, she felt comfortable enough to schedule an appointment to see me. Lauren was wonderful to work with. She learned quickly that she was suffering from a moderate depression. She also learned that her divorce was a crucial turning point in her confronting the sizable gap between her expectations and reality. We had 11 sessions in all. Each involved Lauren's learning specific skills to reestablish control over her life. She learned to address her life questions, make good decisions, and redefine her expectations for herself and her life. Lauren's depression lifted as she developed these new tools for better living. Soon, she began to feel quite different about her life. She even became what she described as more comfortable and content with who I am and the choices I've made. And at 33, there's much more to come. Her newfound optimism led her to make real changes in both her ideas and methods, especially in regard to her relationships with others. She hasn't found Mr. Right yet, but she is content with not having to have Mr. Right now. She's built up a social life, she dates, and she finds happiness doing other things she feels good about. In short, she's doing well. Lauren's depression wasn't an illness. It was a clear and valuable sign that something was wrong. It was a call to examine more closely what too many people seem unaware of, how expectations, thoughts, feelings, relationships, and all the other aspects of experience that can drift off course can lead you to erroneously believe you'll never have a happy or fulfilling life. It didn't take Lauren long to discover what she needed to do to get better. Good therapy for depression can work reliably and quickly, as you will discover through your success with this book. Here, you can learn to act as your own catalyst for personal growth in ways that can break the grip of depression on your life. Is depression a necessary or inevitable experience? The answer is clearly yes and no. Yes, everyone experiences depressed feelings from time to time. No one escapes the hurtful things in life. No, not everyone sinks into clinical depression. What have we learned about those who do? We've learned they are often missing information or skills that could help prevent depression. When Mark Twain said, "It isn't what you don't know that hurts you, it's what you know that isn't so," he was only half right. What you don't know can hurt you. Depression can be a completely normal response to painful circumstances, or it can be a sign that a person is going down in flames because he doesn't know how to handle sensitively something that must be handled with skill. The more complex our world gets, the more things we face that need to be handled with great care. That includes both internal experiences, such as sadness over the breakup of a relationship, and external ones, such as being laid off from a job. I am a clinical psychologist who has treated depressed individuals for the past 20 years. I have written 2 earlier books and edited a 3rd on the subject of depression exclusively for my professional colleagues. Through my experience, I have come to believe that the chief problem with most depressed people is that they think, feel, and act out of a depressive perspective that is distorted and hurtful, and then make the mistake of actually believing this perspective is a God-given truth. When a relationship ends painfully, they may tell themselves, "I'll never fall in love again." When they get laid off from a job, they may think, "I'll never be able to get another job." When they respond imperfectly to a situation, they may say to themselves, "I'm an idiot." Having internal dialogue is normal. Believing the negativity, though, is unnecessary and hurtful. The most important point I can make at the outset, the point that succinctly represents all I have written here, is that people become absorbed in ways of being, thinking, feeling, doing, that they mistake for real or true. They lose sight of the fact that much of life experience is not clearly this or that, but is instead a product of personal beliefs. So when people tell themselves and then actually believe, "I'm a terrible person," or "life is just no damn good," depression is a predictable consequence. The worthy skill to develop is how to step outside your personal beliefs. Only then can you determine whether they are accurate and serve you well, or whether they are distorted and the cause of unnecessary pain. Let's consider an everyday example. You call a friend just to say hello, but your friend isn't home. You leave a message on his answering machine, but he doesn't return the call that day. Naturally, you wonder why. No return call is made the next day either, and so you call him again and leave another message on the machine, this one betraying just a hint of irritation. No return call. Now pause. What do you tell yourself about this situation? Do you tell yourself that whoever you're calling is an irresponsible jerk, or that you are always being ignored or abandoned by others? What do you tell yourself? How are you and your mood affected by what you say to yourself? Does telling yourself these things help or hurt you? What is the right way to respond to such a situation? In this book, you will learn to respond to such everyday situations skillfully and in ways that minimize your chances of believing something that is detrimental to your self-esteem. Depression is not a fixed thing, and despite the oversell of drug companies, treatment centers, talk shows, and books that suggest you think of depression as an illness, just like diabetes, the best evidence to date states that for most people, depression is not a biologically based disease. The disease model of depression and the value of antidepressant medications have been exaggerated. Biology is only part of the depression story, and antidepressant medications are only part of a total solution. For most people, depression is the product of a hurtful way of interpreting and responding to life experiences. Depression involves an intricate set of projections about yourself, life, the universe, everything. By projection, I mean the way you interpret the meaning of something that is ambiguous or unclear. You may know of the psychological test called the Rorschach inkblot test. The Rorschach test involves showing the client an inkblot that is ambiguous in shape, then asking the client to interpret its meaning. People will see all kinds of meanings in the inkblot through their projections about it. The relevant principle here is called the projective hypothesis, which says that whenever you encounter an ambiguous stimulus, you inevitably interpret it from your own perspective. What is the most ambiguous stimulus any person ever faces? As best as I can tell, the answer is life. Life is like an inkblot, an experiential Rorschach, so to speak. Life doesn't have an objective or assigned meaning. We give it meaning by our individual values, beliefs, relationships, careers, hobbies, and other life experiences. Depression is also an inkblot of sorts. It is interpreted from many different perspectives or frames of reference by different mental health professionals. Each interpretation has the potential to help someone suffering the pain of depression, but extensive research has made it clear that none should be applied to the total exclusion of other approaches. For example, just giving someone antidepressant medication without teaching thinking, cognitive, or social, interpersonal skills is not doing a depressed person any favors. Antidepressants alone, valuable as they are, cannot address faulty patterns of thinking as effectively as cognitive therapy can. Doesn't it make sense to address all dimensions of the problem of depression in order to arrive at a more complete resolution? I will emphasize throughout this book that depression is not a single problem with a single cause and a single treatment. Depression can have many points of origin, and many paths can lead one out of its grip. Therefore, I will give many perspectives and many tools that you can work with to custom design your treatment plan in the most intelligent manner. I am keenly aware that the experience of depression is as different from person to person as are the individuals who suffer it. Most of the common denominators are well known, however. There is a legitimate basis for you to be optimistic about overcoming your depression. The tendency of depressed people to interpret life experiences negatively helps fuel the negative expectation that when life is going badly, it will always go badly. It is essential that you take this into account and make a deliberate effort to change your thinking in the area of expectancy. Few experiences, good or bad, are enduring. The majority of experiences are, in fact, transient. When you know that, hopefulness can start to take the place of hopelessness. When you are depressed, almost everything is overwhelming. Simple tasks seem difficult. Difficult tasks seem impossible. And the energy to deal with much of anything, easy or hard, is missing. Now, at a time when depression may make you feel anything but ambitious, I am encouraging you to be actively involved in this book. At a time when you are depressed and hopeless, I am suggesting that you work at building hope. At a time when your future seems entirely negative, or at best uncertain, I am telling you in a firm and deliberate way that your future can be much better than anything you have ever experienced before. But you need a realistic plan to make it happen. I can tell you with absolute confidence and sincerity that the perspectives and skills you will learn here hold great potential to help. The path to recovery will be created by your learning about depression, understanding how it affects you and why, and honing the skills to deliberately change your thoughts, feelings, and behavior quickly and efficiently. This book isn't emotional popcorn. It's a serious manual for building the life skills that can make your depression go away. The path to recovery isn't something done to you, however. It's done with you. I hope you'll be an active partner, willing to experiment with your beliefs and perceptions, and thereby evolve new ones when they seem appropriate or desirable. Let's put depression in perspective. As you and I both know, the world has changed dramatically in the last several decades. The changes have been primarily sociological and cultural. Certainly, many of them were positive and progressive. Significant steps have been taken in the direction of civil rights. There is greater mobility and broader freedom to choose an individual and personally satisfying lifestyle. Families can actually be planned, and the technology now exists to cut short the amount of time spent on drudgery, like cleaning or balancing the checkbook. Communication is instant, and valuable information of all sorts is so plentiful that it's easy to become overwhelmed by it. All the gains of so-called higher consciousness, technology, and personal freedom have not been without cost, however. On the contrary, the costs to all of us have been enormous. Getting high used to be taken lightly as an adolescent exploration of consciousness. Now, America is being strangled by a nightmare drug problem that includes murder and mayhem in all neighborhoods. AIDS has made free love something you may eventually pay for with your life. Relationships that endure till death do us part are found most frequently in old, late-night movies. In addition to these obvious costs, one of the liabilities associated with all the social changes is our national mental health. A major research finding that is startling, even to the mental health professionals who uncovered it, is that the rate of depression has increased by a factor of nearly 10 in those born in the years following World War II, the baby boomers. The 1950s and 60s were times of rapid economic and social change that forever altered American values and lifestyles, and apparently deeply affected people's feelings about themselves and their world. The 1970s, 80s, and 90s have seen life get more complicated than ever. The fact that depression is more likely to occur in someone born after 1945 than in someone who was born at the turn of the century is highly significant. That it affects people at younger ages is equally significant. It means biology isn't likely to be the chief culprit. After all, human genetics and biochemistry do not change dramatically from one decade to the next, nor do they change dramatically in some age groups but not in others. Social change, however, is swift and dramatic, and it readily affects specific age groups. The factors that have caused depression to be the most common psychological problem in America are far more likely to be environmental than biological. This interpretation of depression as much more than biology gone awry is supported by the recognition that in other cultures around the world, depression increases as the society becomes more westernized, that is, culturally similar to the United States. Thus, hope for depressed people of all ages can be built on an understanding of the social and psychological factors that have caused such high rates of depression in so short a time. Depression affects people of all ages, but the high concentration in certain age groups enables us to observe more carefully the factors that underlie the serious problem affecting you and millions of others. Can these factors be identified and successfully treated? Can depression be overcome? The answer to both these questions is a definite and unhesitating yes. Depression is among the psychological problems most responsive to appropriate treatment. When the treatment is aimed in the right direction and is organized and carried out appropriately, depressive symptoms can usually resolve relatively quickly. Questions about the causes of depression are many and will be talked about throughout the book. I will, however, provide brief answers in the next section. Self-help for depression. Depression comes about for complicated reasons that at first glance may actually seem simple. If you consider the recent changes in society that have shaken many of our basic ideas about life and observe the rising rate of depression as an obvious consequence of these changes, it becomes obvious that our lifestyles and values contribute to our overall sense of well-being. As a clinician who routinely treats depressed clients, and as a teacher and writer in the field, I have identified many key patterns, including ways you think and ways you relate to others, that can either contribute to or prevent depression. Throughout the book, I will describe specific patterns that are the basis of your perceptions and moods. You can learn to recognize these patterns in the ways you do things that may end up hurting you. Once you can recognize the patterns that lead to a disappointment or despair, you will be in a good position to learn to do things differently. At that point, you can teach yourself, with the help of this book, how to approach life situations in ways more to your satisfaction. A primary goal I have in writing this book is for you to feel good about who you are and what you do. Central to the self-help methods described throughout the book is the idea that your experience can limit you enough to depress you. Sometimes depression evolves from non-critically absorbing a cultural belief that is erroneous, such as, you should always put other people's needs ahead of your own, or from reaching an incorrect conclusion about an experience, you should never trust the opposite sex. For example, if you have never had a good, close relationship with someone, then my saying to you, what you need to do is go out and have a good, close relationship with someone, isn't likely to help. Why doesn't my advice provide relief? Because you may know what you want, a good, close relationship, but your lack of experience in ever having had one prevents you from attaining it. Knowing what to do does not provide you with the skills for doing it.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?